Okay, welcome to part 2 of the presentation. Bert Cruz, and I'm going to walk you guys through the methods, results, and the conclusions found in the article. So to begin, the researchers recruited 3 main groups: the target lesion group, and that group consisted of 3 subgroups: the insula lesion subgroup, amygdala lesion subgroup, and the VMPFC lesion subgroup. The second main group was the lesion comparison group, and this group consisted of participants with lesions to brain regions other than the insula, amygdala, and VMPFC regions. And the third group was the healthy participant group. And each individual was asked to perform 2 tasks. The slot machine task, which was the first task, and you can see a picture of the task in figure 2A, in which each individual completed a total of 60 trials on a simplified 2 real slot machines task. It had 2 different versions. It had a participant chosen trial and a computer automated trial. And in the participant chosen trial, the participant gets to choose his or her icon, while the computer trial selects it for you. The second task was roulette. The roulette wheel displayed an equal number of red and blue segments, and on each trial, the participant first guessed red or blue, and then gave a confidence rating on a 21-point scale, and the outcome was presented. The roulette task is illustrated in figure 2B, and every participant ran this trial 90 times. Okay, there we go. So in the methods as we keep going with the slot machines methods, after the icon selection, there are 3 different outcomes as seen below. And after each trial, the participants had to choose 3 rating intervals, and that included: how do you rate your chances of winning, how pleased are you with the results, and how much do you want to continue to play. In the results of the slot machine tasks, when comparing the 3 main groups, on the chances of winning, all 3 groups had a higher expectancy of winning when selecting the play outcome themselves than when compared with the computer automated selection. This is consistent with the illusion of control that people tend to have. And another result was that winning tended to increase the motivation to continue playing. And it was also found that win responsivity was lower in the lesion comparison group compared with the target group and the healthy participants, who didn't differ much. When we look at the 3 subgroups in the slot machine task, they also had similarities, much like the main groups, such that the perceived chances of winning seemed to be higher when they could choose their play icon, and also that winning increased the motivation to play. But there was a difference in motivation to play ratings, and it's seen in figure 3B. And looking at figure 3B, we see a motivation rating of continuing to play, calculated by the near miss score mean minus the full miss score mean. And this basically shows your motivation to continue playing after a near miss score. So in healthy participants, the mean average score was 1.91, showing that after a near miss, healthy participants were more motivated to continue playing. And if we look at the VMPFC score, which was negative 0.3, you can see that there was nearly no difference between near misses and full misses, which resulted in a score of close to 0. If we keep going on and look at the insula score, you see a negative number, negative 3.2, which shows an inverted motivational response. So instead of being more motivated to continue playing after a near miss, insula lesion participants seem to be less motivated to continue playing, which may show a lack of a gambler's fallacy in insula lesion participants. Lastly, the amygdala score was 1.4, which is on trend with the healthy participant score. So if we look at the roulette results in the three groups, we found that the gambler's fallacy effect didn't seem to vary across groups. They all had it. Subjective confidence levels did not vary as a function of either winning streak or losing streak length, and there tended not to be like a difference or tend to stick to one color versus the other in overall choice between red versus blue. Target patients were more likely to switch color than healthy groups, and significant differences were seen between all three groups in lose shift score, but those differences were not seen in the win stay score. When looking at the three subgroups, the insula group showed positive recency on average in the difference of calculating a change score based on the difference between shorter and longer run lengths. This indicated no significant difference in tendencies to switch colors following an unsuccessful prediction. And if we look at figure 4, A and B, we will kind of see that. So if we look at figure 4A, we'll see the three main groups, and you can see that all three groups are having that downtrend in when looking at the choice of previous outcome and in relation to run length. So as the choice of if we look at the run length of 4 to 5, you can kind of see that the target group kind of has a slight uptrend, and this may be due to that positive recency from the insula as seen in the slide before. And if we dive further and subdivide the target group to display the three subgroups, we can actually see that positive recency. And basically this is explaining that the insula lesion subgroup participants didn't seem to let the outcome of they didn't let previous outcomes dictate their next outcomes that the other groups actually did. So for some conclusions, patients with injury to VMPFC and amygdala displayed effects of near misses and gambler's fallacy comparable to participants in the healthy and lesion comparison group. So in conclusion, the data found does not support that the VMPFC and amygdala have involvement with either near miss effect or gambler's fallacy. One note that was made was that neither of the two gambling tasks loaded heavily on risk-taking, which may explain the lack of effect on the VMPFC group. So if we look at the insula's activity on gambling, insula activity has been linked to drug craving and cue-induced motivation, as we've learned throughout the semester, and we saw it in smokers who suffered damage to the insula region, which resulted in quitting due to the abolition of the urge to smoke. If we go further, the insula damaged target subgroup failed to modify their investment behavior as a function of prior outcome. They didn't base their previous wins and losses on their next choice whenever they were playing these games. And one conclusion made from that is that insula damage may resemble abolition of that gambler's fallacy seen in the other groups. So near miss effect and gambler's fallacy disruption in insula implies activity and linkage of the two gambling disorders. So a conclusion to this is that the data provides a neuropsychological evidence for the causal involvement of the insula in two gambling-related cognitive distortions. generating a testable hypothesis of insula overactivity in disordered gambling. And here we have my opinion. To me, the research question could have been worded a little better, but for the most part, it was understandable. The methods seemed to show answer to question at hand because they tested two gambling misinterpretations and how different brain lesions affected the perception of gambling. The methods were explained in detail, which was great, but I feel like a larger sample size would have given more concrete evidence to an answer. The main points of the results were explained clearly, but questions arose to how they calculated some of the numbers in the graphs because they didn't explain it. They didn't explain their equations very well when it came to the graphs and the data that they interpreted. So personally, the graphs did not seem very helpful for interpreting data, and a different method of graph or chart could have alleviated some confusion. The conclusions made from the results' main points were logical, showing that along with influence to inhibition of drug motivation and cravings, the insula may have a role in motivation to continue gambling. If this is true, it may provide a future for treatment of gambling addiction by blocking some parts of the insula. And I almost forgot, if it'll work, references. These are our references. Thank you.